Todd Muller.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Rise to speak in support of the second reading of the Social Assistance Portability to Cook Islands, Niue and Tokelau Bill. I'd firstly actually like to acknowledge some of what Carmel Sepuloni said in her opening remarks about the importance of this bill in opening the wider New Zealand's view on the special relationship that exists between New Zealand and Cook Islands, Niue and Tokelau. And look, I have to be honest and inform the House that my understanding of the special relationship was relatively limited. And through this select committee process, I've had my own, eyes widened to that. Perhaps it's because in Tauranga Boys College the history was very European and Second World War focused. We didn't have a lot of Pacific Island history, but it's certainly something that I have enjoyed being part of on the Select Committee. As we have heard already in the conversations around this second reading, we had a number of submissions, 6 submissions turning up or presenting verbally, and of course 13, just over 12 submissions in all, and they all were broadly supportive. So some of the views that we've heard here expressed tonight around some of the areas of concern, I think, have been given more weight than is due relative to the perspectives that were shared, certainly when I was listening on the Select Committee. I do think it was quite amazing, actually, that we had a visit from 2 heads of state and Prime Minister Henry Puna from the Cook Islands and the Niue Premier Tuolangi. Initially, I thought that this perhaps was perhaps a symbolic gesture, but certainly, and again, that perhaps talks to my newness to this particular topic and the relationship that we have with these 3 countries, because it was clearly far more than that. And you could see it with the import that they brought to the conversation and the historic ties that they wanted to reference in their submission, and the importance that they saw that this particular bill was going to provide for their communities. And so, Mr Speaker, it is, in my view, absolutely right that these 3 countries have the opportunities that are outlined in this bill, and particularly the opportunity to return home from the age of 55, and should they wish to, when they get to 60 or 65, apply from their homeland for the superannuation and have it paid there, and of course take their qualifying veteran pensions with them too. Mr Speaker, freeing these people from the obligation to be resident in New Zealand at the point of application for New Zealand super, I think will provide significant flexibility and opportunity for these communities, and we have heard already this evening, as we've stepped through this conversation, the feedback that we've had from a number of submitters around the opportunity they think it will bring their communities. When you have had the population drift that has occurred from these 3 countries to New Zealand, the opportunity to provide a mechanism to enable them to return home and contribute from the age of 55, when they have still so much energy and capacity to their original homeland, I think is very powerful. And I believe it will be taken up in larger numbers over time than perhaps what is initially suggested at just under 250 initially. Mr Speaker, there was clear feedback, and we've heard some of that already this evening, that the 55 years old cut-off should be made earlier or even removed altogether. But that challenges the overarching residential qualifications for New Zealand super and veterans' pensions. From my perspective, I think that would be certainly more than a step too far. It is really important, though, that we acknowledge that that was, a pretty consistent feedback from those who made the submitters. In terms of the opportunity to go back and contribute to their societies, I'd like to just spend a moment reflecting on a Niuean friend of mine who's currently a school teacher. I happened to have a conversation with him about this particular bill and what this could mean to him and his broader family. And he was open with me that, he hasn't really historically considered going back to continue his educational contribution in his home country. But this particular provision is something that now will mean that he will reflect on it. And I hope that he does consider it. He is a renowned educator, and the opportunity to go back to his homeland and contribute in his area of passion, and then be able to be supported in terms of New Zealand Super, I think is a really positive step forward. We've heard that it won't be just examples of my friend that we will see. We will see a whole lot of different people, not necessarily those who were born in the islands, take up this opportunity and see perhaps a change in course of their life to head back and spend a decent part of their lives back in those three particular countries. Mr. Speaker, I would like to spend just a moment reflecting on the veteran component to this bill. They obviously spoke with some passion about the changes that they think should be considered. I think that the way we have this bill written is fair. It is consistent with the position we've taken and the changes that we've made recently. And I think on balance they will see that it still is a step in the right direction. Like my colleague Matt Ducey, I would like to just spend a moment acknowledging their sacrifice, and particularly those from the realm countries who not only gave their lives in pursuit in support of the values that underpin our collective countries, but of all of the populations, to move from the Pacific to fight in those world theatres must have been extraordinarily daunting. And certainly the feedback that I've had as I've studied this a little bit more over the last few weeks is that they found those conditions quite appalling and really suffered tragically from it. So I do want to acknowledge that, and I do want to acknowledge my own RSA in Mount Maunganui, the 10,000 who turned up to the cenotaph. Quite an extraordinary outpouring of public support. Mr. Speaker, the specific submissions, if I could just spend a couple of moments reflecting on that, particularly the 5 years over 50. Have to acknowledge that most submissions raised feedback about the application of that particular rule and extending the coverages to cover all Pacific countries, and also improving the existing provisions of the existing veterans' pension. But the 5 years over 50 rule was introduced in 1990, has been in place for 25 years, and has replaced an even more stringent 7-year residency rule before that. And I think it serves the right purpose, which is essentially that you need to have had a recent engagement and contribution to the New Zealand society and community before you are applicable for that particular super. And I think that's appropriate, and it raises a whole lot of other equity issues if we start treating particular subsets of New Zealand super applicants different to others. In terms of the extending of the coverage issue, I think it is appropriate that we hold the line there, and that certainly is the feedback that we've had from a number of submitters. I do want to talk just briefly about implementation. That was raised quite a number of times by submitters. We're obviously going to pass this. This is going to come in. It's going to be a great change for these countries. The risk here is that that those who are available...
Order. I regret the time has come for the dinner hour, and I should therefore interrupt the member. He will have about 55 seconds when we come back at 7:30. The House stands adjourned until 7:30.